I'm State Senator Len Suzio. I represent Senate District 13, which is Meriden, Middlefield, Middletown, Cheshire, and Rockfall. I've called this press conference today to discuss three topics. First, I want to discuss the near tragic incident that occurred in Hamden 2 weeks ago in a shootout between an armed criminal and a cop that week. The second thing I want to do is I want to discuss new and updated data that I've received from the Department of Correction regarding the so-called Risk Reduction Earned Credit Program, what I call the Early Release Program. And the third thing I want to do is explain what I intend to do legislatively about the Early Release Law. So let me begin with a question. Excuse me. My question is, what the hell was a armed convict who hadn't completed his prison sentence doing on the streets of Hamden 2 weeks ago? Why wasn't he behind bars finishing his sentence? Why was he free to apparently engage in armed robbery, his term of sentence having been shortened by 402 days? Oh, I forgot. We have the so-called Risk Reduction Program, Governor Malloy's notorious Risk Reduction Program, the program that is intended to turn hardened criminals into model citizens and make our communities safer. Kewan Cole now sits in jail, having been charged with attempted murder of a police officer, as well as numerous other crimes. As the Hamden police chief said that day, it was a miracle that the officer was not killed in the line of duty. For that matter, the store clerk could have been killed as well. It was sheer luck that we don't have two more bodies, the victims of murder by another Risk Reduction Program graduate. And by the way, it reminded me in an eerie way of the first murder I can remember being committed by an earned risk reduction credit criminal, Frankie the Razor Resto, who 6 years ago entered a convenience store in Meriden and robbed that store and then shot the owner, the 70-year-old Ibrahim Ghazal, to death, even though he offered no resistance and freely gave him the money. I wish that the story from 2 weeks ago would be an exception of the record of the risk reduction program. But after 6 years of early release experience, we have enough evidence to show it belongs on the growing list of Malloy administration failures, one after the other. Which brings me to my second topic. I have an agreement with the Department of Correction that every 6 months they will provide me with records of prison inmates. A week ago, I received the updated files from the Department of Correction containing the prison records of all inmates discharged from Connecticut prisons since the inception of the wrongly named Risk Reduction Program that began in September of 2011. I want to share with you some stunning, I would say scandalous, facts and statistics from those records. The first thing I'm going to share with you is a stat I don't think anybody's ever heard of. In the first year when the program was implemented, starting in September of 2011 through August of 2012, there were 8,727 inmate discharges processed that year, inmates who had received risk reduction credits, allowing them to get out of jail faster than they would have if they had served their full prison sentence. To date, that first group of inmates, the graduates, the first graduating class of the risk reduction program, have been returned to prison 8,351 times. Think about that. You got inmates who've been discharged 8,727 times, and that same group of inmates has been returned to prison for resuming a life of crime 8,351 times. Anyone who's good with math? That's 95.69%. To me, it's damning testimony that the early release program is a complete and utter failure, and it's poorly named. It doesn't reduce risk. It increases risk in our communities, needlessly exposing our citizens to hardened, violent criminals who have gone through the motions of participating in a program but have not been really reformed. Once again, I wish that this latest story of the risk reduction graduate program it was an outlier, but it's not an exception to the normal experience. I have some data which I've summarized and which we can hand out to people at their request about the serious crimes that have been committed by early release prisoners once they have been discharged from prison early, having participated in the risk reduction program. And I'll summarize some of those shocking numbers in my opinion, and the numbers themselves damn the program and tell me that it should be terminated with respect to violent criminals immediately, or at the very least it should be suspended pending legislative action. We're talking about acts of murder, manslaughter, or homicide. 119 have been charged to early release program graduates who have been convicted and put back into prison for those crimes. Sexual assault, rape, 154 criminals have been reincarcerated or readmitted to our prisons for that. This amounts, by the way, in the 6 years and 4 months that the program has been active through December 31st, this amounts to either one rape or murder every 8.1 days. Stop and think about that. This is a scandal that's happening every week. Sexual crimes against children. 603 of these inmates have been returned to prison for engaging in sexual crimes against children. Strangulation, 263 convictions. There are 1,201 violations of protective or restraining orders. Think of the people who are subjected to that and what the terrified life they live is. And these criminals are let out of jail early to engage in this activity. All told, we have identified 12,705 serious crimes committed by risk reduction convicts who received the get-out-of-jail pass from Governor Malloy and Mike Lawler. These numbers and the ongoing stories of murder, rape, arson, kidnapping, child pornography, in my opinion, should spell the end of the risk reduction program insofar as violent criminals are concerned. I know that there's still resistance in the administration. They defend the program, and it will not be an easy battle. But I do intend to push for legislation to add to the list of crimes not eligible for early release. Last year, I did personally introduce a bill which was passed through the Judiciary Committee and actually passed through the Senate. And unfortunately, it was not brought up for a vote in the House. This year, I am asking the Judiciary Committee to bring that bill up again and to process it and pass it on to the Senate for a vote, and then I will press the House and Senator Speaker Arasimowicz for a commitment that he'll allow a vote on it in the House this year. I have already contacted and spoken with two of the Senate co-chairs of the Judiciary Committee who have indicated to me their support. I do intend to contact the Representative co-chair, Representative Tong, and I will also speak to the ranking member, Representative Rabimbas, as well. But again, they all supported the same legislation last year, and it did successfully pass the Judiciary Committee with a very strong vote, and it did pass the Senate. So my hope is that we can, if we can't end early release for violent criminals, at the very least, this legislature has the opportunity to do the right thing and add to the list of crimes that are not eligible for participation in the program. And with that, I'll answer any questions from the press.